This next chapter is called The Rudeboy and the Magical Land of Toxic Waste. This chapter is where Jay talks about meeting me. So y'all know this is my favorite chapter. Tell them about it, Jay.
All right, Rudy. During our late teens, Joey and I used to take the bus downtown whenever a wrestling show came around. We'd hang out behind Joe Louis and Cobo arenas and get autographs from the wrestlers, and usually ninja our way in the back door. We never paid for a ticket, not once that I can recall. Between the WWF and WCW shows every 2 weeks, we'd be downtown a lot. That was the shit. We met every wrestler. I used to have this green folder with a green marker, and in that folder I had every fucking wrestler's autograph. Everybody except for two, Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant, because Hogan and Andre used to pull their limo right into the arena. Those are the only two ninjas who I never got their autograph, and it sucks because I would have loved to have met Andre. I would have fucking loved to have shake his big fucking catcher's mitt hand, but I never got my chance. Damn. Besides us, there was always this other kid out there getting autographs too. His name was Rudy, but he always wanted people to address him as the Rude Boy. Nobody ever would, though. To us, he was always just Rudy, this chubby Mexican autograph kid from downtown. Joey and I would be wrestling around behind the arena, and Rudy would just jump in, even though we didn't know him that much. Pretty soon, he'd be telling stories about all the wrestlers he met, and we told him our stories. Before long, our friendship had grown past getting autographs together. Before long, Rudy was our psychopathic homie at arms for life. He was the person who introduced us to Detroit. Rudy's dad even worked at Tiger Stadium, so he had the hookup for free baseball games. Sometimes we would get together, dress ourselves up like bums, and take the bus downtown via Woodward Ave and beg for spare change all day. We just wanted to see what it was like to be a real homeless person. Shit, we'd make about $17 a day, just enough for a bus ride home and an order of pizza that night. Them days were the shit. You wouldn't believe how scared them people were of us. Some people would even set the money on the ground so they wouldn't have to hand it to us. Sometimes we would get into fake fights with each other over the money they would give us. People would start running and screaming. That shit was hella fresh, a hella dope experience. Little did we know back then, however, that 99% of the other homeless people downtown were fakes too, just like us. They do that shit for their job and then go home and watch color TV in their fucking silk slippers. With no time at all, Rudy was wrestling in the NAW with us. His wrestling name was, yep, you guessed it, the Rude Boy. His mom never had a car, so we'd have to talk my mom into driving all the way to his house to get him. Rude Boy lived in River Rouge, a poor-ass area of downriver, near where my sister used to live. It was a journey from where we lived. My brother and I tried to walk there once. We left at 9 in the morning and didn't get there till midnight. According to the mile reader thing in my mom's car, it was a 30-mile fucking walk. It was far as fuck. The next day we could barely move off the couch. It was on these trips to pick up Rudy that we first experienced Southwest Detroit and Del Rey. When you're driving down the I-75 freeway south from downtown, the road goes right up on a bridge over factory and smoke that always fills the sky with a steady gray cloud. Huge pipes shoot out fire all the time. Buildings are black from smoke. Seeing all this for the first time was incredible to us. It looked like Gotham City. At this point, John had a steady girlfriend, so he was kind of a sap. Because of her, he wasn't really hardly around that much. Little did we know, or care for that matter, but his woman was known as the neighborhood slut, back in the Oak Park, Ferndale area. The more he was in love with her, the more Joey, Nathan Mack, and myself would be hanging out downtown with Rudy. One night, behind Joe Louis Arena, we met this wrestler from way back in the day named Al Costello. He was one of the fabulous Kangaroo Brothers from back in the days of Cobo Hall Wrestling, owned by the Sheik, back when it was called big time wrestling. He was working as a security guard in this old empty building downtown. Rudy and I would go visit him and talk and hear all his old wrestling stories about Bobo Brazil and the original Sheik. All he did was sit there behind a desk at the front door, so he loved it when we'd come and talk to him. The man was cool as fuck. Even though he was just a security guard to the people in that building, he was an absolute superstar to us. Talking with him was amazing. R.I.P. Al Costello. Soon Rudy and I became such good friends that by the time I dropped out, he let me come live with his family in River Rouge. Rudy introduced me to a neighborhood that was not like the township, that was not like Oak Park or Ferndale or anywhere I had ever been. Rudy wasn't showing anything off. He didn't even know that he was educating me. He just showed me Southwest Detroit. The only place in the world that ever felt like home to me. In Southwest Detroit and River Rouge, that whole area, there was never one race that ran the whole neighborhood or all the schools or anything. It was utterly race-free. On one block, you had Hispanic kids, white kids, black kids, and Asian kids. Everybody was poor, everybody was on welfare, and everybody dropped out of school. It wasn't an issue. It was home the first time I walked the streets. A guy would be going out with a girl and be like, "Come on, let me buy you something to eat at the store." Then he'd whip out his food stamps right in front of the hot chick. She didn't mind because she was on food stamps too. Her whole family was on food stamps. Every fucking buddy was on food stamps. I was just straight up blown away. I didn't have to hide shit about myself anymore. I'd walk around flashing a fat ass knot of food stamps like, "Wood, bitch. Who's hungry up in here?" Rudy showed Joey and I this one park where at night you could sit on these benches and look at the Detroit River, and then out of nowhere, the whole sky would light up yellow. It would all of a sudden be like daytime, and then it would slowly fade back down to dark again, all within about 45 seconds, because the park was next to a giant steel factory, and they'd pour these giant tubs of hot, molten, glowing steel in the factory, and the whole fucking sky would light up for blocks and blocks, as bright as daytime. I thought about how great it would be to live there. You're in your bedroom and you go to sleep, and every once in a while your whole fucking room lights up like daytime 4 or 5 times a night. That'd be so dope. Rudy and his 2 cousins, Juanito and Andrew, also introduced us to the infamous Clark Park. That was the hot spot. Cars would line up in the summertime and just bump sounds. No one particular gang really ran Clark Park. It was just cars lined up all down from all different sets. Everybody was trying to holler at the hood rat hoes walking around. "So gangs are what's big around here?" I asked. Rudy laughed. "Man, all it is gangs around here, bro." As we drove around, I noticed all the gang members were about my age, barely old enough to drive, and they would all live in the same house with no parents or anything. They would spray paint their gang's name right on the fucking front of the house. The X-Men, the Young Guns, or the Latin Counts, man, the CFP, Cash Flow Posse, they were all located in Southwest Detroit. As you drive by, there'd be like 15 kids hanging out on the front porch drinking 40s. Out of those 15 kids, 3 would be white, 3 would be black, 3 would be Hispanic, and 3 would be Asian, Indian kids, everything. Every one of them was poor, dressed poor, looked poor, just like my ass. I thought, man, this is the only fucking place I fit in. I could go up and talk to a girl here with nothing to be ashamed of. As much as I felt like I fit in around Southwest, I still felt like Rudy and his family maybe thought I was some Richie kid or something from the suburbs, because I was from the northern suburbs. Rudy had this little kid around his parents' house who he always said was his little brother, only the little kid's name was also Rudy. Of course, he was really Rudy's son, but Rudy didn't want me to know that at the time. He didn't know how I'd react. That fucking sucked, because I wouldn't have gave a fuck. I wasn't some fucking suburban asshole who would have thought anything different about Rudy having a son at such a young age. After a while, though, all that finally wore off. Soon enough, we were like brothers from the same family. The first time I took Rudy and his cousins to my mom's house, we passed a laundromat that had a big-ass fancy neon sign. They were stunned. Damn, that's a laundromat, Juanito asked. It looks like a fucking nightclub. Man, that shit hurt me. Think about it. I spent my whole life being pointed out and laughed at as the poorest kid, the scrubbiest kid, to step on a tile and you have to kiss one of the Bruce Brother kids. And all of a sudden, I was being looked at as this kid who had all these rich kid benefits. I hated that. I fucking hated that. I knew even Rudy's cousins had truly accepted me when one day that summer we were at this big street fair. It was at the Holy Redeemer Church, a huge landmark in Southwest Detroit. I was 16 and I had a car, a 72 Brown Volare. It was fucked up. My mom gave it to me so that I could find a job. I had other plans for it though. I quickly turned it into a wannabe thug ride. I actually spray painted 187 on the doors. I even had thick ass lug nuts and giant bolts stashed all over the car in case we had to throw shit at somebody, along with a ton of other weapons like bats and pipes. Anyhow, we were walking around this big street fair eating corn dogs and shit when a big ass fight suddenly broke out. Rudy and his cousins jumped in my car along with a couple of other kids that we knew from the hood. We thought everybody was gonna come back with guns, so we got the hell out of there. Trouble was, I didn't know the neighborhood that well yet. Which way should I go, I asked. You're not from here, one of the kids yelled, still excited from the fight. No, I answered, I'm from Ferndale. Where the fuck should I go? Where should I turn? The kid started to fuck with me. Man, you ain't from Southwest? Man, you ain't shit then, bitch. You need to let me drive. You're a fucking nerd. Boom! Rudy blew his grill out right there in a car. I was like, whoa, what the fuck? I stopped the car. Within seconds, Rudy and his cousins had dragged the kid out of the car and were stomping the shit out of his ass right there at the corner. Shit, I even threw it in park, jumped out and punched the kid a few times myself. From then on, I knew I was family. I was their homie, not just some kid from the suburbs. Once I was a homie, I wanted to be gangster in and throughout. The inner city posse was born. What? The inner city posse, you asked? Well, it was just really Rudy, Joey, John, Lacey, Nathan Mack, and myself, and all our new Southwest connections, but we were definitely thugging. Only half of us were actually from the inner city. We didn't all live in Southwest, but we claimed it as our own. The truth was, we were all losers so far in our lives, and the whole gang thing kind of gave us an excuse to be losers. At least we were cool losers. Like all them ninjas sitting on their porch with the gang name on their house, they seemed like they had a job. They were gangsters. That was their job. They wanted everybody to know it too. They had a role in life to fill. They were part of a scene. Inner City Posse was our own attempt to be part of a scene. We wanted to matter for the first time in our lives. We did horrible things, y'all. I gotta keep it real. At that age, our brains were still growing because we weren't thinking right. The shit I did in the township was like nursery school compared to the straight up criminal shit we were getting into. There were these hookers who used to hang out in front of this motorcycle club called the Iron Coffins, and we'd call them over to our car like we were gonna pick them up. Right when they'd lean over into the window, we'd whip bricks at their faces like, bitch, get the hell out of here. We would leave them laying on the fucking corner. I can't believe we actually did that shit now. Then we'd go back to Birmingham, our old stomping grounds from our caddying days. Birmingham is a rich suburb that the church my mom worked at was in. Birmingham really was richy shit, and we used to get into a lot of beatdowns in Birmingham because we loved stomping rich kids for some reason. Only now, we really were stomping ass. My mom still worked at that church in Birmingham as a janitor. On her days off, she worked at Birmingham cleaning people's houses for extra money. I fucking hated that. She never gave me her work numbers because she knew I wanted to kill the people she worked for. I couldn't deal with the idea that my mother was cleaning some other family's fucking toilets. Plus, I had this new Southwest Detroit gangster mentality that only added fuel to the fire that had already been burning within me for years. Sometimes in Southwest Detroit, I was looked at as a rich kid. And man, the truth was, I fucking hated the rich. We were always dirt fucking poor, and being looked at as a rich kid fucking hurt my insides. It fucking drove me crazy. I hated the rich. The rich were the golfers I worked for. The rich were the people that had my mom scrubbing their toilets. The rich were the ones that would lock their fucking cars when we came walking by on the corner. I fucking hated the rich. We would actually drive around Birmingham and just beat the shit out of rich kids. I'm serious. We would all duck down and pull up to some kid. He'd be like, "What are you looking at?" And we'd all just hop out of the car and beat him the fuck down. As I said, this sounds crazy, but we beat many, many people for nothing at all. I was out of control in these days. We all were, with no desire to regain control. Bad timing had much to do with my dramatic turn in life. My brother Rob was the only reason I ever cared about anything. He always made it all make sense. He made me want to be a floob. He made me want to be a better ninja. He is what made being a floob so special. He was the reason being poor was something to be proud of for us. He was my leader. Everybody in the world dissed us and looked down upon the Bruce brothers, but with Rob at my side as my other half, I was happy as hell to be the other Bruce brother. Time crept up though and stole my brother from underneath me. Suddenly, he was in the army, and I think that's what really sent me over the deep end. As I mentioned before, with my mom having so much trouble raising my sister, Rob and I basically raised each other. Only now, Rob was gone. He was always my anchor. Without him, I was lost, y'all. There was no more Bruce brothers and no more floobs to hide behind every time life seemed shitty. It was just me on the streets around in Oak Park, Ferndale, and Southwest Detroit. Just me in the streets. I was alone and pissed off for the first time in my life. Not about Rob being gone. I was happy for him. I was happy he was in the army doing something fresh. Him being gone just opened a lot of bad windows and doors in my life though. I wasn't blind to the bad shit anymore. I could see it all, and I had to deal with it all alone. For the first time, I was pissed about the bad breaks my family always got. I hated that my mom had to work so hard all the fucking time. Yet I was mad at my mom for leaving us with Mary Roll back in the day. I questioned everything now. I was mad about my mom giving Duke away. Instead of always just blowing everything off, I started to cuss. For the first time. Why not cuss? Everybody else did, right? Rob doesn't, but there is no Rob around me anymore to make not cussing cool. I fell off hard with no net. I was mad at everything. I never got into drugs, thank God, but that's just because my friends weren't into them. Some of my friends weren't into them, at least. I was lost enough to try anything. I didn't care enough not to do drugs. I was lost enough to try anything. I had no choice but to trade my brother and all our special Bruce brother honor in for a stale life of trying to be a badass gangster. I was trying to catch up for all the years of blowing it all off. Months after him leaving for the army, my brother sent us this super ruthless mace with a letter. He said, "Carry this around at all times to be safe. This is army issued mace. It's mad ruthless." It was like army issued tear gas or something. We'd spray people with that just to see them rolling around grabbing their faces as we took off. All we did was beat up rich people or anybody with a mouth. Sometimes the fights were with other crews who thought they were badasses like we did. We would rush them all with the weapons in my car and leave them broken and bloody. During this one fight, I remember hitting this guy with a heavy crowbar. I remember hearing the bone snap in his arm and then beating him into unconsciousness. I was fucking straight up losing it. I should have been locked up. As an adult sitting here right now, I'm telling you, I was like a wild animal. I should have been locked up off the streets. I was a straight up menace to society. Half them fucking rich kids we beat down were probably honestly cool, and they got their fucking asses stomped for nothing. It was wrong. It wasn't fucking cool. Our heads were out of control. We were thinking fucking gangster rap was was real, we were losing it, man. Another time, I was driving on the freeway by myself when a carload of drunk teenagers pulled up beside me and started flipping me off. I might have pissed them off with my careless driving, but without hesitation, I turned the wheel on my car hard and slammed into them, knocking them completely off the highway and down into a ditch where their car knocked down a street sign and almost flipped over. I never found out how badly they were hurt at the time. I could care less. Truth is, I doubt they were hurt, but I know they were fucked up and their pride was seriously injured. We were all criminals now. I wasn't much of a thief at all, but Joey and his brother John had that shit down. They would go into a bookstore and steal an expensive hardcover book and then take it to another store and return it for the loot. They'd steal CDs, Nintendo games, speakers, anything, and then return them all at other stores. They would go right on until dinner time, and then they'd steal food and we'd cook it. Bottom line was, we were seeing the benefits from being a gang straight up. At the same time, these were our most impressionable years, and not much of anything positive was going on. One very good and very positive thing that did happen back then, however, that I'll never ever forget, was I got my very first shot of some actual Nedding. Yep, I lost my virginity. While most American boys lose their virginity at around 14 or 15 years old, it took a scrub like me till I was almost 18. We met these hoes at a party store in Ferndale, and they were fucking hoes. That's exactly what they were. Straight up equivalent of us, scrubs, broke ass fucking welfare chicks. Nasty, just like us. And they lived in Hazel Park, which is the neighboring suburb of Ferndale. It was rough hanging out with those hoes over in Hazel Park back then, because we had lots of enemies around there. Anywho, we met these bitches and I started kicking it with one named Rhonda. All three of them looked like skinny-ass, dropped-out trailer park hood rats, which meant they were beauty queens to us. I liked Rhonda and she liked me. She always would tell me that my friends were all full of shit and that my forehead wasn't really that big. I really wanted to fuck her bad. I thought I was going to. I could have sworn it was in the bag, but nope, and fucking nope. Every night. I tried so hard for so long to fuck her, but she'd never let me. About 2 weeks of phone calls and hanging out with these skanks, I finally gave up. I called up Rhonda and told her that I was breaking up with her. I said, "If you love me, you'd have let me hit it by now, and you ain't letting me do shit, so I'm out of this bitch." I explained that the reason was she still hadn't let me fuck her, even though it had been like 2 fucking weeks. She was upset, but I needed some ass, so I didn't care. I never even had any Nedding yet, and I was sick of always hearing about how fresh it was from all my boys, and from Joey, who was only like 14 and tagging mad Neddins. He had already got mad skins, so that was it. I was done with Rhonda. About 3 days later, Rudy's phone was ringing. It was for me. I was like, huh? Turned out it was Rhonda, and she was drunk as hell.
"You guys should come over,"
she said. She was so drunk she could barely keep the phone next to her face. I got so geeked I could barely talk. "Rudy, Joey, John, come on, get in the car." We jumped in my shit brown Volare and drove right over there. We barely got in the door when a little Boone's Farm breath Rhonda led me into her bedroom and got right up on top of me. I was speechless. This was my first time and I didn't have to do anything at all. She was doing it all. She even took down my sweats and pulled my dick out. She got on top of me and gave me a little quick meat wash and then hopped right up on my wet dick and pushed it inside of her. I was laying there, motionless, in shock. I'm still feeling like I'm in shock. I didn't have to do nothing, thank God, because I probably would have put it in her butt on accident. You have to remember, this had never happened to me, ever. When we weren't throwing bricks at hookers or macing other ninjas, sometimes we'd have hookers suck our dicks in the car. I'm not gonna lie, but that was paid for. This chick wanting to fuck me thing was brand spanking new. She just pushed my little dick right up inside her like I'd wined and dined her and sung Lionel Richie songs to her all night, and that was it. I was fucking her. It was crazy. I was just laying there fucking her. It was awesome. Fuck. I'm having a flashback. I'm about to bust a nut. It was fucking so dope. I didn't have to do anything. Thank God. She took total control of the situation and got on top of me and fucked me. She pulled my dick out of my pants and straight up fucking put it in. Thank God. I didn't know where that motherfucker went. I probably would have been poking her fucking neck and hair, wondering, why ain't it going in? Why ain't it going in? Thank God she did it all. Young love. That was the shit. That was it. I can't front. She fucked me better than 90% of the skins I had since then. She was the whip. I wish I knew how to get a hold of her today. I wouldn't mind some more of that fucking Hazel Park Rhonda. Wow. That night changed my life forever. I remember after that we were driving in the car and I was just speechless. I was just stunned, just blank-faced, staring off into nothing. It took a long time to come out of that coma. It took a fucking long time to come back to reality. I felt like a fucking superhero. Wow. After spending more and more time in Southwest and downriver, we actually started to forget about wrestling completely. We were just thugging. Inner City Posse was our daily job. We did the gang thing. If people wanted to join, we'd beat them down. But not real hard. We didn't do it like they do in LA or anything and kick their fucking teeth down their throat. We just kind of fake wrestle them a little bit. And that would be their initiation. Real gangs sold drugs and guns. We were just terrorizing people. And we spray painted ICP all over Ferndale, all over Oak Park, and of course, Southwest Detroit and Delray. And that was about it. Even then, being somewhat fake gangsters, we still had our share of these little gangster turf wars. Like I mentioned before, Hazel Park was one of our war zones. There was this crew in Hazel Park called the HPs, which stood for Hazel Parks. What a stale fucking gang name. They're so fucking lame if you think about it. We'll call ourselves the HPs. Why would you want to represent Hazel fucking Park anyway? It's so fucking stale. We warred with them for years though. We'd smash up their cars with rocks. Just completely stupid shit while listening to NWA and the Getter Boys and taking it all way too seriously. We drive around bumping this tape by a Detroit rapper called Awesome Dre because his music was the shit. Dre was the biggest influence on me in all of rap. Awesome Dre and NWA. And of course, later on Esham, but that's coming up. After a while, the gang shit started to catch up with us. All that thugging messing up our karma. See, John just about quit our gang because of his girlfriend. He was with this crystal bitch just about 24/7. Rudy got a serious job and he was gone at work all the time, and that made me living with him on and off at my convenience a major nuisance to his family. Pretty soon, it seemed like I was the lone ICP member still around, and the HPs knew it. They knew they couldn't find me, but they did find out where I used to live, my mom's house in Ferndale. And one night at about 11:30, my mom was off at my sister's house when it happened. The HPs came over to my mom's and smashed out all of our car windows and the fucking house windows. It finally had happened to me. The same terror we had been doing to ninjas all over the place finally came home. We got a taste of our own medicine. That fucking really sucked. I didn't have any fucking money, and my mom sure as fuck didn't have any to fix that shit. We had no choice but to turn to our rich Uncle Larry for help. Help bail us out once again, please. I thought of how bad that night must have scared my dog Lady, who was at home alone when it happened. That thought alone made me want to put a bullet in them kids' heads. Joey was chilling with his bitch and stealing with his homies, Nate and them, every day possible. Just about everybody seemed like they were gone. The situation of my problem was a shitty one. I had no other choice. I had to skip out of town. I called my brother Rob and told him I needed to escape. Within about a week, I was on a Greyhound bus for the 3-day ride down to North Carolina. Fayetteville, that is. Rob set me up with a place to stay. Since he lived in the Army barracks at Fort Bragg, he hooked me up to live with some old Elvis-looking guy who he kind of knew from the Army. $100 a month in rent, and I got to live in the back room of this guy and his wife's trailer home in a poor-ass city called Booney Dune, a suburb of Fayetteville, just outside of Fort Bragg. My brother fronted me the first month's rent, and then it was on my ass to come up with it from then on. Booney Dune, North Carolina was now home sweet home. Damn, my bedroom was like over 100 degrees at all time. I had 2 things in my room, a small radio with an awesome Dre tape and a Tony Tone tape, and a Nintendo with 1 game. In Detroit, I'd mace hookers and drive away. Now all I did was watch from my bedroom window as they got picked up and dropped off. Booney Dune was every bit of the dirty South, man. And these hookers around here were especially fucking ugly. I tried to hang out with my brother when he got off every afternoon, but that wasn't always possible. He would go on field missions for weeks at a time, and then it was just me, bored off my fucking ass in that trailer home. I remember looking at this Clint Black poster hanging on the wall in my room. It was the only thing in that room. I asked the Elvis guy who owned the trailer if he'd mind if I could take that poster down. Nah, why don't you go ahead and leave it on up there, he said. Wow, that was North Carolina. My brother and I soon found out this guy was a bigot too. Him and his little 16-year-old fat wife. He started saying racist things here and there just to test us. In fact, many people in North Carolina were bigots. Racism at this level was straight up new to me. With my brother around me again, things were easy to just blow off and forget about. So I did. Before long, though, I started to adapt at Fort Bragg, and I even started to hustle again. I buzzed my hair and wore my brother's army fatigues so that I could eat in the mess hall for free. I'd eat, work out, and sometimes sleep in the barracks with my brother and his friends. I'd just walk around all of Fort Bragg dressed in army fatigues, pretending I was a soldier. I hated it in North Carolina. The whole fucking time it was hell. I figured that I'd just get a job and make a few friends and start to be okay. But I never did. As the stale time went by, I was more and more amazed and shocked at how racist the people were. The rednecks in Booney Dune would all talk shit to me just because of the shoes I was wearing. They hated anything close to black style. They were fucking crazy evil. Evil, y'all. It hurt knowing that terrible shit on TV about the South was actually true in some parts. I was straight up in one of those parts. Everywhere you looked, rebel flags. Everywhere! Rebel fucking flags. My brother and 2 of his homies explained all the racism to me. My brother's friends in the army were all black, but they took Rob in right away. Rob even had a black girlfriend, and they were majorly in love with each other. Rob's friends told us horrible stories about the racism they had to deal with since moving to the South. All this hatred and racist evil was crushing my brain. I was in shock that nobody ever said or did anything about it in the army. After a few months, I started to feel way worse about my surroundings than I did back in Detroit. Every day, broke as hell, I would wake up and the first thing I'd see was that Clint Black poster. Fuck Clint Black. I don't even know who the fuck that is, but if I ever see him, he's getting stomped. Then I walked to this McDonald's, and while I was applying for a job, I heard this customer yelling through the drive-thru intercom at this other female employee. I thought, man, there ain't no chance in hell I could handle that. I'd have told that guy to go fuck himself. Then a manager of this McDonald's told me that to get a job there, I would need to get a letter of recommendation from the other McDonald's I had worked at. Problem was, I only worked at that other McDonald's in Oak Park for about 3 days before telling them to fuck off. Then I remembered I had told the manager of that place to fuck off when I quit that job. I handed the application back to him and just walked out. I couldn't even get a job at McDonald's in fucking Booney Dune, North Carolina. Maybe Michigan wasn't so bad after all, even with all them gangs after me. I needed out of this racist hellhole I was in. I'm not saying that all of North Carolina is a racist hellhole. Nowadays, of course, we know that for a fact because there's mad juggalos in North Carolina. Back then, though, where I was at, it was indeed a redneck hellhole, and I needed out quick. Anything would be better than Booney Dune and that 100-degree trailer room. I had no way of getting home, though. Worse than that, though, I really didn't know where I would go once I got home. My brother gave me his last $60, and I headed for home, walking. Well, that wasn't the original plan, but that's pretty much how things ended up. I actually planned to hitchhike home, but much to my surprise, most of the people just passed my ass up, and I ended up walking for miles and miles. As I was walking along the side of the freeway, I kept seeing these yellow and white trucks pass me by. Soon I recognized them. They were from a giant trucking company right in Delray, Southwest Detroit, right on Michigan Ave, called Yellow Trucking Corporation. I figured if I could just get a ride on one of those trucks, I'd be okay. That truck was going all the way back to Delray in Detroit. That would have been a shit. Only yellow truck after yellow truck just passed me right the fuck by. Hitchhiking sucked dick. That shit ain't easy unless you're a half-naked chick. For us scrubby-looking thugs, though, it ain't easy, man. First of all, you walk in the fucking sun, which is over 100 degrees all day long. And then at night, you walk as long as you can until you finally pass out on the side of the road. That's when you enjoy a horrible night of laying in the dirt and bushes, being ate up by every insect there is. Walking along the freeway at night was extra scary for me because I kept this one horrible vision in my head. I kept thinking that somebody was going to ride up behind me doing 80 and suddenly just whip a bottle or something out his window, busting me in the back of my fucking head with it. You know, some crazy fucking drunk redneck just taking me out in the middle of nowhere for no reason at all. That shit happens every day. Why not to me or to you? Don't hitchhike, ninjas, unless you're a hot chick with fat tits. Then it should be perfectly safe for you. Yeah, right. I was out of money by the time I hit Raleigh, North Carolina. That was this big-ass college town. I slept on the steps of the college there. I remember waking up around the dorms thinking, if I just had game, I could kick it with one of these bitches and she'd put me up and let me fuck her and cook me dinner right in her dorm room. But game, I had not. I didn't have shit. Those were the worst days of my life. Homeless in Raleigh, North Carolina. Finally, I called my brother, and he came and picked me up and took me all the way back to Booney Dune. I was too sick and worn out to continue on anymore. By this time, my brother had more money to spare, so he bought me a bus ticket for home. Once again, I headed out of Booney Dune, North Carolina, this time for good. The very next time this city would ever see my face, it would be from a crowd's perspective, behind face paint, after paying $15 for a ticket. Whoop, 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 whoop.